same in his we hope that our message will get to him once we are going to talk to you. We are here on an advocacy visit with the team of protecting women and the girl child from violence. And this is against the background of the bill in the State House of Assembly, the Violence Against Persons Protection Bill, which we are hoping that will be passed soon by the State House of Assembly and assented to by His Excellency. What we have here is a speech, a write-up, which is about 6 parts. The first one is introduction and rationale. The second part of it is about articulating violence against women and the girl child. The third part is these standards that we mentioned, what they demand and what they expect from the Adamawa State government. The fourth part is what is happening in Adamawa State in relation to violence against women, the respective indicators. The fifth part is on the next steps and the practice, while the final part is the conclusion. I will not bore you with reading this whole document, which is about 6 pages, but what I intend to do is to summarize. And I start by 2 aphorisms that a chain is as strong as the weakest links. Of course, how any society treats its most vulnerable and marginalized groups is a representation of the development and civilization of that society. And it's a historical fact that we are all living witnesses to, that women are marginalized in our society, are vulnerable. But these things are based on culture, norms, tradition, customs, and the happiness about those customs is that they evolve with changing circumstances, with new knowledge, with new ideas. And Nigeria is run by laws, rules, and regulations. So if we want to change anything, we must first of all think about new laws, new policies, new regulations. And that's where law comes in to regulate norms and social conduct in every given society, whether you talk of benefits, rights, entitlements, how to place in society. It must be the outcome of a legal or policy situation. And we're also happy to know that our Constitution has started the groundwork by saying that every Nigerian has a right to human dignity. And if we interpret this human dignity well, it will mean freedom from violence, whether it's sexual and gender-based violence, whether it's violence against women and girls, whether it's harmful traditional practices. All of them are all part of what the Constitution thinks about in protecting or guaranteeing human dignity. But beyond the constitutional prohibition, this things need some definitely specific laws that we have to push it so that everybody can begin to enjoy it on a day-to-day basis. And that brings us to the fact that the human rights of women and the girl child, and indeed all members of the human family, you cannot put it in silos to say this one is violence against women, this one is this. Because if you're discussing violence against women, you may have to talk about women's right to education. You may have to talk about their health. You may have to talk about their maternal and child mortality. And so that's why we encapsulated this thing within the concept of the indivisibility and the inseparability. You have to take the rights of women as a holistic package, which will now take to move forward. Because any other treatment will result in something that will not actually protect what we expect it to protect. And Nigeria is a federation. Yes, we have the exclusive, concurrent, and the resilient legislative list. But the power and authority to bind Nigeria to international agreements and treaties and standards belongs to the federal government. Once the federal government does it, it is expected that the 36 states of the federation will kill in. And we cannot plead our domestic laws as a basis for not keeping to the international agreements we sign. Because these agreements are not by force that Nigeria went there. We went there voluntarily to say we want to be part of it, and everybody clapped for us to say we have signed. Now, if you look at some of these international standards, there's the United Nations Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women. There's also the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. There's the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, called Maputo Protocol. All of these declarations, conventions which Nigeria has signed, try to articulate what they mean by violence against women. And violence against women has gone beyond the idea of physical violence alone. There is psychological violence, there is emotional violence, there is even economic violence. That's what we call the structural violence, which says a condition of favorable societal conditions in such a way that no matter what you do, you have a glass ceiling that you cannot be able to cross. But we're happy that even today, the people outside of Nigeria have started recognizing Nigerian women to put them in great positions of authority. Amina is she from this state? Amina in the United Nations. Good. She's at the United Nations, a very good career diplomat. You saw that the whole world said Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is going to be chair of the director of the WTO, except the United States that refused. But the racist was thrown out. He's a racist.
Yes.
Donald Trump. When Adesina wanted to run second term as President of African Development Bank, he said over his dead body, will the Nigerian come second term? They set up a high-powered committee and they finished investigating. They didn't see anything against the man. He was returned. Everybody agreed that Ngozi should be the BTO. Donald Trump said no until he lost the election. That was a saving grace. So what I'm saying is that we need more and more of such people who will come out and represent us, because other people are also allowing their own women to come out and be the champion and be the best in the world. So if you look at all these provisions, what do they say? If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, it says we need to end all forms of discrimination against women and girls everywhere. Eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls in the public and private sphere, including trafficking, sexual and other types of exploitation, female genital mutilation. So this is what the SDGs say. And these SDGs, we don't have to wait until 2030 before we start scratching our head. We have to start taking steps incrementally, so that by that year we know that we must have tried our best to reach that desired end. Now, the state has an obligation to take steps to respect the rights of women, to protect their rights, and to fulfill their rights. When you talk about respecting, it says simply don't take any official action that violates already existing rights. Protection is to stop third parties from violating women's rights. Fulfillment is where you talk about appropriate legislative action, which is the law before the bill before the State House of Assembly is the typical example for the fulfillment. So then, what are the facts in Adamawa State that we are looking at to say, let's go on with this?